Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another video here on YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about Star Citizen yet again. It's one of those games that have bitten me with a bug of interest recently. And well, I don't play it every day, but I am definitely keeping a closer eye on the project. And as you might have noticed, there's a few more Star Citizen videos recently coming out, and there probably will be continuing forwards as the game is really, well, it's kind of taking me along here. Well, I was thinking about today that we could talk about 3.18, what to expect from it. Now, CIG hasn't said too much about what's coming in 3.18, but some of the big things we know is coming is the cargo refactor and the first iteration of salvaging gameplay. Now, those two things alone are massive, and I think the cargo refactor system and salvage could almost be a video on its own. However, today we are not going to be looking at any of those things in specific, as well as they're worth mentioning as what they're coming out to be. But I think what's more interesting to look at is some of the things on the progress tracker that isn't as highly advertised to all of us. Now, one of the things I want to bring up is that the AR map marker system rework is coming along. And whatever this is I'm not really sure, but it's a rework of augmented reality and map marker systems to work with building blocks. And I think what this is that they rework the UI of the Moby Glass and maybe how some of the map markers work to be the building block system they have. So if you haven't played Star Citizen, there's some screens, and building blocks is basically an easy way for developers to create a layout and an interactivity between a screen or like an application in the game for the player, and it runs better on the game. It just runs smoother. Another thing that is potentially coming out is atmospheric pressure damage, which means that atmospheric pressure damage is a damage players and NPCs or ships will receive in situations where the exterior pressure exceeds the pressure resistance of the corresponding ship, armor, or suit. And this is supposed to be done in May. So we might actually see this in 3.18 entering a little bit. You know, if you fly too low on Hurston, you get damaged because, well, it's high pressure and you're not high pressure resistant. That's probably the best way to say it. The cargo system refactor, highly worth mentioning. This is probably going to change how cargo is going to be handled. I'm really curious to see how they actually do this. Is cargo system refactor going to be the way that you just get a timer for loading cargo, or do you actually have to load your cargo yourself? I would like the latter, where you have to load it yourself, because then that would be more fun. It just sounds like, it just sounds like more interactivity. Another one that's cool to mention, commodity kiosks. Now, this might sound weird, but don't we already have these? And yes, we do. But they're just going to redo them so they do building blocks, and they'll add loading timers, which will, need to be factored in when planning cargo runs. So it seems like I just got my answer to my question. The commodity kiosk rework actually seems like it tells us how cargo refactor is going to work. We're not going to load the cargo ourselves, at least not yet. But we will have a timer to how long it will take to load a certain amount of cargo onto certain ships, which will mean that certain ships, like for example the Hurl series that carries the cargo on the outside, or the Consolidated Outland Nomad, or the Gaitak Raylan, all of these ships that carry cargo on the outside of the ship will probably have much shorter timers compared to like a Hercules or a Caterpillar, where all the cargo is interior and you need to load it into the ship. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens. And they're doing the door airlocks and light panels. I think they're making new interfaces for those using building blocks again. Because at the moment I don't think they're using building blocks. If you've seen elevators, I think those are using building blocks. But I think for everything in the game, they're going to move everything to building blocks. Just so it's easier to interact with. And so it's just, better. The Drake Vulture. It's not going to be finished in time for 3.18, but I have a feeling it's going to be a subsequent 3.18.something patch that will drop the Vulture. So we're probably going to start salvaging with hand tools and then eventually get our Vulture. Now, here comes a really interesting one. This one has been in development for 62 weeks. Fire hazard. The fire hazard system will track fire and temperature on static and dynamic objects. For the initial release of Fire, the feature will be set up on a select few ships. And this sounds really cool. Like, now we're starting to get some engineering gameplay into the game. And I mean, I have a feeling some of the ships that's going to have fire. The 890 is probably going to get fire right away because, you know, it's a big ship. There's a lot of places to burn. Oh, I would imagine the 890 probably gets that stuff. Maybe the 600i, because they've showcased some of the tests on that ship. And the 600i is getting a rework, so it would make sense to kind of, you know, spice it up with some flames. The Gen 12 Renderer Tier 1. Now this is kind of big. You might say, but Turtle, what do you mean with Gen 12 Renderer? That's not going to add a lot, is it? Well, it might actually do so. It might increase our frame rates even more. Now, I don't think this is the final iteration of Gen 12, but it will replace the current DirectX 11 renderer with a new rendering system, which will increase our performance. And already in 3.17 we can see that there are some performance gains for the Gen 12 stuff that is already in the game. And 3.18 we're just going to get even better performance, so that is looking really nice. Looking forward to that. We're getting the Grey Cat Industrial Salvage Backpack on the Salvage tools and the Grey Cat Tractor tool. I think the Salvage tool and the Tractor tool are bigger tools. They're not just a small handheld multi-tool. They're like a dedicated big machine to do this stuff. So it seems like if you're hand salvaging, you need a backpack, maybe a special backpack to actually get salvage and the materials into your backpack. And as far as we know, Salvage is probably going to add some sort of repair where you can just like spray on the salvage material and kind of patch up your ship if you have a lot of holes in it. So that sounds nice. Now, there are some things here that are pretty close to completion during 3.18, but I don't know if they're worth mentioning, like Infiltrate and Defend missions. They are just finished right after 3.18 is supposed to go live. I'm wondering if they're going to add them with the salvage ship of Drake Vulture, maybe 3.18 something, maybe they add that in. I mean, that would be a bonus. Like ladders tier 1, so you can utilize items and maybe shoot off the ladders while you're still on them. Lean over cover is also just on after 3.18 supposed to be released. Now, the curious thing is, what do you think? Tell me in the comments down below. Do you think that the features that are completed just after 3.18 is coming out, do you think they will add them in a 3.18 something patch? Or do you think CIG will hold all of these features back and let them out later with, you know, 3.19 instead to add more content? Now, another cool thing that's coming, lockable containers in 3.18. Now, we don't know if this is in 3.18, but it's scheduled to be finished before 3.18 goes live, so I would kind of imagine that lockable containers will be in. And lockable containers will add the ability for designers to lock entities with either physical or electronic locks, which can be opened with a key or forced open via cutting, destroying, or hacking the lock. So this sounds like there might be something that could come in already, because we have the cutting tool on the multi-tool. And we have guns, we can shoot the box. So, you know, there's potential. We're getting some Microtech Lagrange points. What this is just some extra asteroid clusters with more stations around Microtech, as it only has one place. And I think the reason they're adding this is because when they had the Xenothreat event going on, there was only one place to respawn when you died. And apparently they got very crowded at times and it was hard to spawn. Now, the MISC Hull C is scheduled to be finished before 3.18 as well, and the Hull E. And the Odyssey, the MISC Odyssey, Hull C and Hull E is scheduled to be ready for 3.18. I really hope they make it, because that would add even more cool ships to Star Citizen, and the more ships we have, the more fun and diversity in the verse we get. I don't mind that at all. The Moby Glass is getting a rework, just done after 3.18. Don't know if we're going to get that in 3.18 though. That's the question, you know. Are they going to add it? Are they going to hold it back? I really hope they add it, because the more stuff we get in the game now to test, the better, because then we get it more fleshed out for the next patch. So, I mean, there are things. And then we have two other things that I feel like is a little bit weird on the list, at least personal inventory, which is scheduled to be done in May. Now, this point in the progress tracker says that when implemented, players will physically store weapons, gadgets, consumables, healing items, and more on their person and in vehicles via backpacks, pockets, and containers. This utilizes the new iCache for persistence wherever players travel. And what I think this means is that I don't think they're going to change the current inventory system, like of how we utilize it, but maybe where you access it. You can't just press I when you're standing in your ship. You have to go to a container on your ship and put your stuff away, and vice versa. When it comes to like your person, you can't just always just press I, you gotta utilize yourself. Maybe what you can utilize yourself with the inventory button. But the other one that is really cool and interesting is physical damage and breakability. Making use of the physics engines to create systems that look and behave realistically when large objects such as ships are damaged by weaponry or colliding with other ships, locations, or planets. This has been in development for almost 2 years, 73 weeks. It's been a damn long while, like a year and a half. And this sounds like it's the start of armor, the starting of the armor system. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes along and what's going to be created and what's going to be added, and if it's even going to be seen in 3.18. It's scheduled to be done in early June, and we don't really know more than that. The proximity mine, which was, announced with one of the, I think it was 3.16 or 15 that added like, oh look, in a derelict there could be a proximity mine. They're adding those. Maybe not in 3.18, it's done just after. The question is, will they add it in a subsequent patch or not? I would hope they would add it in a subsequent patch, because that would add a lot of, playable, just add more diversity to our weaponry and arsenal on the ground. We get rescue and transport missions also done early July, so after 3.18 goes live. Also a good question, will we see it or will we not? Rest stop hangar replacements. Now this, it might be pretty big, because in rest stops right now you land on pads and you can see out into space, but I have a feeling they're going to replace all of these pads with hangars, which is a little sad, but I guess it's to, lower the performance cost on, popular stations when the game has many more players and many more ships flying around, so every ship isn't parked outside on a pad, but more tucked away in a hangar, so not every client and server has to render everything depending on how the mesh of servers will work. Now, that'll probably enter 3.18, I would imagine so at least. That's done in May, middle of May, last part of May. The RSI Scorpius is also coming, also a ship worth mentioning. That's also gonna probably be in a subsequent patch. It might actually come out in Fleet Week. That's something. It might come out in 3.17 something. We don't know. We'll see. Salvage Tier 0. Delicious. Can't wait to get my hands on salvaging some stuff. That is going to be interesting. They're going to use some turret usability improvements, and I think that's going to be nice, improving the gameplay of turrets, including giving gunners more flexibility and support when using additional weaponry. I think that will be really nice. It's going to be pretty cool. There's a lot of unannounced stuff that is finishing up. Oh, there's unannounced vehicles that are finishing up in the, early mid-June. One is about to be finished here in May. So it's going to be interesting to see what those are. There are a few of these. So in June, we might have a new ship sale of like a lot of ships. And hopefully these ships aren't just concept. Hopefully these come out flyable and ready to use. Now 0G Push and Pull is coming out. And that's going to be pretty cool. It's not coming out in 3.18, I doubt. It's done early July. I have a feeling a lot of these things are done early July is not going to be added into 3.18.x, but it's going to be held to 3.19 to bolster 3.19's content, as 3.18 might have a lot of unannounced vehicles, some big features, and some quality of life changes, and some performance updates. So we might not see everything we want to see in 3.18, but we might see a good 3.19. Now, it's down to you. What do you think about this update? What do you think about this video? Tell me down below, I'd like to know your opinions and thoughts. I've been the Turtle, hopefully you enjoyed your stay, and if you did, be sure to leave a like, maybe a subscribe even, and I'll see you next time. Until then, have a good day. Bye bye.